Hello and welcome to the France 24 interview. My guest today is Poland's Foreign Minister, Witold Waszczykowski. Thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
Mr. Waszczykowski, I want to get to some of the tensions we've seen between Poland and the European Commission. The European Commission has given Poland 1 month essentially to change some reforms of the judiciary. The EU is worried about, saying it's against the rule of law, and says if this doesn't happen, it could take legal action against Poland. Are you going to listen to what the Commission is saying, or do you think that you know what you're doing and you're not going to change course?
This is what you say, the tensions are created by the Commission, especially by one Commissioner, Mr. Timmermans, because this is a quarrel on interpretation. Can we, as an independent sovereign member of the European Union, according to the wish of people who elected us, who elected government, are we eligible to change the judicial system in Poland or not? And we are trying to change according to the wish of the population. And we are changing this not by inventing anything new, but by importing this already existing solution in other members of the European Union. And that's the problem, because the message which is coming from the Commission is that you are too young democracy, or maybe you have a different legal culture, so you're not eligible to import some of the solutions which already exist in other countries. So that's the problem of interpretation.
But the EU is saying that, for instance, without going into all the details, the possibility to dismiss the Supreme Court is a violation of the rule of law. It has nothing to do with choosing a legal system or another. It is going against the rule of law and therefore against the EU rules.
But the problem is that such proposal doesn't exist. So they are just thinking about future ideas which might be adopted by the parliament in Poland. So far we are just debating, we are just discussing about the changes in the judicial system. So what's the right, what's the prerogative of the Commission to already impose on us some regulation or some direction of thinking? That's a double standard, because this is a sovereign decision of a country, of Poland, to discuss the future reform of the judicial system. If we are stopped by the Commission even in discussing the changes, that's a situation which is totally bizarre.
You don't fear legal action, or you don't care about legal action against Poland by the EU?
We haven't done yet anything wrong, so why are we supposed to discuss any legal action?
The possibility of Article 7, as it's known, the nuclear option, which has never been used before, would essentially take away from Poland voting rights. Do you think that this is a real possibility? Or if this happens, would Poland react very strongly?
I don't want to even speculate about that, because I think that's, once again, I would say this is a bizarre situation to discuss possibility to implement Article 7 and to exclude a sovereign country from a voting system in the Council. This is just a pure speculation, and I don't want to join this speculation and continue about that. Poland is trying to, especially the government, which was elected in a democratic way and has a huge support of the population right now in Poland, is trying to implement the program which was the basis of our victory 2 years ago.
Right. So you don't fear that Europe will act? You think things are going to be solved one way or the other?
I hope so. I hope so. We are part of the European Union. We are responding. Of course, from time to time, the Commissioner Timmermans is sending a letter asking for this and that. Every time we are responding and clarifying his doubts. And I think that it's supposed to be solved in this way, through the dialogue, through openness, through direct contacts with the government, not the opposition only, because it happens. So we still believe that there is an honest way to solve this dispute, not the tension, the dispute over the interpretation in the peaceful way.
Another bone of contention, the migrant policy. EU court ruled against Hungary and Slovakia, and the EU is saying again it could take legal actions against countries refusing to implement the EU 2015 relocation plan. Obviously, Poland has said again and again that it would not accept any migrant. Same question, I would say. Do you fear that the EU will take Poland to the courts?
First of all, Poland is accepting hundreds of thousands of migrants. Last year, only for the Ukrainians, we issued more than 1,200,000 visas. And this year, in first half of this year, we issued more than 750,000 visas. Most of these visas are with work permit. So this is not true that Poland is closed, is xenophobic, and is not accepting migrants. We are accepting hundreds of thousands of migrants.
But not those ones.
It's most probably, they are different, worse than the others?
No, I'm saying the plan from the EU, you're not accepting it, right?
Because we are accepting other migrants from other directions, which are not accepted by the others. There are no, in such a large number of migrants from Ukraine in other parts of Europe. They are in Poland. So if we're supposed to talk about the migration issue or migration phenomenon, we're supposed to cover all the problem from all the directions. The decision taken 2 years ago by the Commission, we think still was illegal, because Commission first decided to qualify all of them as refugees. We know already that about 80% of them from the 160,000 number which is supposed to be relocated, they are illegal migrants. They are not refugees. Secondly, we tried to implement this decision, and 2 years ago we sent security officers to the camps. Security officers couldn't identify these people because either they didn't have ID or they have many IDs, so we couldn't identify them. And finally, the third, we couldn't find volunteers to go to Poland because these people are smart enough to know that there are other European countries offering them much better condition of life and social benefits. So the benefits for the migrants or refugees, for instance, in neighboring Germany, are 3 to 4 times better than in Poland. So how come we can implement this relocation?
Right, but didn't you, not you personally, but your government say they were a security threat, those migrants?
Because we couldn't identify them, so for security reasons, we cannot accept the people we cannot identify. It's obvious. That's a problem.
It has nothing to do about their origins.
Nothing is about the origin, because as I said, we accept hundreds of thousands of people coming to us through eastern borders.
Right. I want to get to what the French president said recently. He had some very harsh words saying Poland was going against EU ideals, that Poles deserve better. Obviously, there was a harsh reaction from your prime minister, say the French president was arrogant, inexperienced. What do you make of this?
I think that words were not necessary, because we are supposed to discuss and solve important issues we have right now in Europe and around Europe. We already touched upon migration issue. We'll have domestic European Union issues like a future of Europe, like a Brexit, like a posted workers directive. So like the security situation, I think, in Europe and around Europe, problems with terrorism. So it's better to discuss, engage in open discussion and take this from this very ideological formula. That's why we sent recently Minister of Defense to Paris to discuss a number of security issues directly with counterpartner from Defense Ministry. In a few days from now, the Minister of Labor from Poland will go to Paris to discuss the other issues, social issues and problems of with the job market, like the posted workers directives. So we prefer to engage in a serious discussion on the merits with our French friends than to listen some slogans which are not necessary, maybe directed for the domestic audience in France, in Paris, not for the Poles.
So you're saying that despite the rhetoric against Poland, because maybe it's an easy target, the cooperation is continuing between France and Poland?
Our response is based on the merit, on reality, on real problems, but we just want to avoid the ideological dispute with French president.
With Germany, Poland is wondering whether to ask for reparations for World War II. You mentioned a figure of above $1 trillion. Well, maybe you'll tell us what your estimate. Why is 70 years later Poland coming up with those reparation claims? In 1953, Poland renounced them. This was confirmed when Poland became member of the EU in 2004. People are wondering, why are you asking the Germans for this now?
First, because for 70 years this case was not solved. It's not true that 1953 Poland renounced. It was a not sovereign government. It was a decision which is not reported. There is no decision in archives. The decision was not reported to the United Nations. And this decision
in 2004 it was confirmed by a non-communist country.
And that was decision related only to the east part of Germany, former German Democratic Republic. In 2004 there was a different situation because there was one resolution taken by the parliament to support, Polish parliament, to support the claim of reparation, and there was a slightly different opinion of the government. So we have not clear legal situation, and we are just study this situation. What was the actually situation after the Second World War? What was the international outcome of the Second World War in terms of reparation? And really, what does it mean, this or that decision of the Polish government? So discussion is among the politicians, in the parliament, among parliamentarians, in the newspapers, but there are no decisions taken by the government yet.
But would you favor formally asking Germany for reparations?
Well, I mentioned publicly that first we have to clear the legal situation, so we need more expertise about this. We need to clear the situation of our losses. We have to have some kind of a record of our losses. And thirdly, we have to discuss politically all the political contemporary aspects of this issue. So this is still ahead of us, this kind of a discussion, and final decision, if it's taken, will be taken by the government maybe in the future, but not right now.
I want to get to the issue of Russia. We've seen military maneuvers in Belarus near Kaliningrad, and are you worried that this was maybe just a demonstration? And do you think Poland needs, for example, more NATO troops on its soil? I mean, do you think that this signals that there's a change in the relationship between Russia and Poland, Russia and the West, and that Poland needs maybe to be better defended?
Well, I think that most NATO countries look at this exercise, the military exercise, in some cautious way. Yes, we worry, not only we in Poland, because a month ago we hosted the visit of Secretary General of NATO, Jens Stoltenberg, and we discussed openly with him, and he also mentioned that this is unusual situation because for the very first time during the or after the end of the communism, after the collapse of the Soviet Union, we witness and we will monitor such a maneuver at such a scale. More than 100,000 soldiers from Russia and Belarus will exercise on the territory from Black Sea, Crimea to Kaliningrad and Baltic countries and Baltic Sea. That means that first it's a large-scale exercise, which is difficult to understand why. The scenario, they are defending the territory from the aggression from the neighboring country. NATO does not have any active doctrine, any aggressive doctrine, especially against Russia. NATO is a defensive alliance. And they are exercising the movement of large troops So these are all the aspects we're supposed to consider and discuss among NATO countries and also with Russia, why they are doing so.
Do you want more NATO troops permanently in Poland as a result of that?
That was not our decision, but that was a message which Secretary General Stoltenberg came to us and told us that after deployment of these battalion groups and American brigade, NATO is supposed to discuss, start and implement in near future decision on creation of follow-on forces. So the large army, NATO army or armies of NATO countries able to help, to assist in case there is a trouble, in case the break of the peace on the Eastern flank.
You don't fear war with Russia, do you?
Well, nothing is certain, of course, nothing is perfect, so we have to be cautious, we have to monitor, because such a large-scale exercise may produce a number of incidents. We already heard even today that some Russian planes overflight territory of Lithuania, possibly other Baltic countries. Could be some accidents which we can face. And this, as I said, once again, the scale of the exercise is telling us that we're supposed to think what is the reason to exercise in such a massive way military skills.
Just a very last issue with Russia. There is obviously the very controversial, sensitive issue of the Smolensk plane crash, which killed the then president of Poland. There was an investigation in Poland by a previous government in Russia that concluded it was an accident. Your government has opened a new probe. It seems that you're thinking otherwise. Do you really think this was not an accident, deep down?
Well, the simple message, if there was an accident, why the plane is still in Russia for the last several years, 7 years actually. So keeping the plane for 7 years and telling us that they are going to continue investigation, they are telling us that maybe the origin of the catastrophe was different. Maybe they, no, our general opinion, our public mood in Poland is that the longer they keep the plane in Smolensk, the longer they keep in Russia, the more they trying to convince us, or we are convinced, they want to keep something in secret, some kind of a mystery. So our opinion, our decision, our appeal to Russia is simple. All the keys to improve situation, to improve relationship between Poland and Russia are in Moscow. And one of these key, one of the instrument is to return the leftovers of the plane to Poland, to show us the gesture that they have nothing to hide in this situation.
The leader of your party, who's the twin brother of the president who was killed, Jarosław Kaczynski, recently said that we were getting very close to know the truth about what happened. So you're about to conclude an investigation.
I'm not part of this investigation team, so I cannot tell you because I'm not informed. I have other priorities, other duties right now, not to be. Some years ago, when I was just a politician, a member of the parliament, I participated in the meetings of this special parliamentary committee, and I had a chance to listen to a number of experts who were telling us that if they create some kind of a computer model of the fly, and they use the data which are revealed by the Russian Commission or other first Polish Commission, they cannot confirm that this catastrophe was actually executed in the way as we can read in the conclusions of the former two reports produced, one by Russian committee and one by previous Polish government committee.
Just very last question. Here in the UN, there was discussion about peacekeeping operations. There has been kind of announcement, maybe it's a trial balloon, that maybe such a force could be sent in eastern Ukraine. Is this something serious, and is this something Poland would favor?
So we don't know yet if it's serious, because there is just a hint from President Putin. We don't know the details. There is when we talk to the members of Security Council, they are telling us that there is no ready tailored proposal of such a Security Council resolution. So first, we don't know how important and valid is this Russian hint of proposal. Then, of course, we need to know the details. When such a peacekeeping operation is going to be deployed. Is it going to be deployed in the whole territory of Donbass, or on the point of contact, which means between Donbass territory and the rest of Ukraine, or this will be deployed on the border between Donbass and Russia? So there are still so many question marks. So it's very difficult to discuss in detail and to answer, are we going to support or not? Because we need just simply to learn the whole proposal, which doesn't exist yet.
Okay, Witold Waszczykowski, thank you very much for answering our questions.
You're most welcome.
And thank you for watching this interview here on France 24.